We all hear it constantly. It's everywhere. That phrase, belief is half the battle. You see it on posters. Coaches shout it.
Oh, yeah. It's the go-to motivational line, isn't it? Sounds good, feels inspiring.
Right. It feels good, but you have to wonder, is it just fluff? Like, is it just a nice saying, or is there actual hard psychological science backing it up?
Well, that's exactly what we're getting into today.
Yeah.
Because the answer seems to be yes. It's not just fluff.
Okay.
It's tied to one of the most powerful and maybe slightly unsettling mechanisms in our minds, the self-fulfilling prophecy, often just called SFP.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay,
let's break that down, because the research we looked at, it makes this process sound almost automatic and kind of scary in how accurate it is.
It can be. The core idea, psychologically speaking, is that your life often ends up reflecting what you most deeply believe about yourself.
So, like, if deep down I truly believe I'm just not good with money, or I always mess things up,
then that belief, that prophecy, has a weird way of proving itself true. And usually it's not because you're consciously trying to fail. It's subtler than that.
how does that work then? It's not like cosmic ordering, right?
No, not magic at all. It's a very predictable behavioral loop. Think about it this way. If your core belief is, say, I'm not really worthy of a good relationship, or people won't take me seriously at work,
Okay.
that belief doesn't just sit there. It kind of nudges you into certain behaviors. Maybe you become defensive, or you withdraw, or maybe you constantly seek approval in ways that actually push people away.
So the belief changes how you act.
Exactly. The belief triggers the behavior. And those behaviors then tend to create the very outcome you were expecting, the rejection, the lack of success. The action driven by the belief does the work.
And the really insidious part is that you then look at the outcome and say, see, I knew it.
Precisely. The prophecy confirms itself. It feels like external proof, but the root was internal all along.
Wow. Okay, so our mission today is really twofold then. First,
Yeah.
how does this cycle, this belief, behavior, result thing, actually work in practice? We need to see the gears turning.
Right. Understanding the mechanism.
And second, and this is the crucial bit for everyone listening, how do we stop these negative loops? How do we ditch the old scripts we didn't even know we were running and start writing and living our own success stories?
That's the goal. And to do that, we need to start with the solid evidence. We'll look at some classic, really foundational studies. The big one is the Pygmalion Effect.
Right, I've heard of that. That's the one about expectations, isn't it?
Exactly. It shows how other people's beliefs about you can literally change things like your measured intelligence. It's wild.
Okay.
And then, from understanding the problem, we'll pivot to the solution. We'll talk about what people like Eric Fromm said about the difference between just passively hoping for something
Yeah, like wishing.
and the real power of active belief, actually doing belief.
Okay, passive versus active. That sounds like the key to actually taking control. All right, this is the deep dive into how our internal stories shape our external world. Let's start with that hard science. Where's the proof?
Okay, so first off, it's really important for you, the listener, to grasp that this self-fulfilling prophecy idea isn't just some, self-help theory. It's a well-documented, rigorously studied phenomenon in social psychology.
It's academically verified.
Absolutely. It impacts everything: school, work, relationships, your health, even finances. It's woven into the fabric of our social lives.
And you mentioned the Pygmalion Effect as the classic example, the one that really blew the doors open on this.
It really did. It gets its name from a groundbreaking study back in 1968 by Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson. Their aim was bold: to prove scientifically that one person's expectations in their experiment at teachers could fundamentally change another person's performance and even their measured intelligence.
And the results were significant.
Significant is an understatement. They're still talked about, still debated, decades later because they were so striking.
Okay, walk us through the experiment itself, because I remember reading that there was a bit of, deception involved with the teachers.
Yes, that was key to the design. Rosenthal and Jacobson went into an elementary school. They gave all the students an IQ test, framed as a test that could predict intellectual blooming.
Okay.
Then they went to the teachers and said, basically, based on this test, about 20% of the students in your class show unusual potential for academic growth. They're poised for a spurt. They called these kids the late blooming geniuses.
And here's the twist.
Here's the twist. The researchers knew something the teachers didn't. Those late bloomers. They were chosen completely at random.
Wow. No difference from the other kids at the start.
Statistically, none whatsoever based on that initial test. The only difference was the label, the belief planted in the teachers' minds. The researchers essentially gave the teachers a prophecy about these randomly selected kids.
So what happened? Did planting that seed of belief actually make a difference by the end of the school year?
It absolutely did. When Rosenthal and Jacobson came back and retested the students, those kids who were randomly labeled as late bloomers showed genuinely significant gains in their IQ scores compared to the control group.
Just from the teachers believing they would. That's incredible.
And not just IQ scores, their overall academic achievement improved too. They literally lived up to the false expectation that was placed upon them.
Okay, but how? It's not like the teachers sprinkled smart dust on them. What actually changed? The students didn't magically get smarter, did they?
No, that's the crucial point. The students didn't change overnight. What changed was the environment around them, specifically how the teachers interacted with them. The teachers treated them as if they were brighter.
And that subtle difference in treatment was enough.
It was. Rosenthal and others broke down how the teachers treated these special students differently. It often wasn't even conscious on the teacher's part, but it came through in four main ways, four channels of communication.
4 channels. Okay, let's dissect those. This sounds like the operating manual for the SFP.
Okay, first channel, climate. Teachers tended to create a warmer, friendlier, more encouraging emotional atmosphere around these kids.
How so? Like, specifically?
More smiling, more nodding, more positive nonverbal cues, just generally making them feel safer and more supported, like they belonged and were expected to do well.
Okay, so warmth and encouragement. That makes sense. What's the second channel?
Second is feedback. This one's huge. When the kids identified as geniuses got an answer wrong, teachers were more likely to be patient, to give them more detailed feedback on how to get it right, maybe rephrase the question.
Instead of just moving on.
Exactly. With the control group kids, if they got it wrong, the tendency was more to just accept it and move to the next student. And when the special kids got it right, the praise was often more enthusiastic, more specific.
So they got more help correcting mistakes and more reinforcement for success. That sounds like a powerful learning advantage right there. What's number 3?
Number 3 is input. Teachers actually taught more material, and often more challenging material, to the students they had higher expectations for.
Really? They give them more work?
Not necessarily more busy work, but more substance. They'd spend more time explaining complex ideas, ask more in-depth questions. They were essentially investing more teaching resources into these students.
Which naturally stretches their abilities more. They're being exposed to more, expected to handle more. Okay, and the last channel.
The fourth is output opportunity. Teachers simply gave the students they expected more from more chances to speak in class.
How did that play out?
They'd call on them more often, let them talk for longer, ask them more difficult, thought-provoking questions that required more elaborate answers. This gave those students more practice formulating ideas, more visibility, and more chances to feel and act like capable students.
Wow. So these 4 things, climate, feedback, input, output, they create this whole ecosystem of higher expectations, and the kids just rise to meet it.
That's the Pygmalion Effect in action. And the huge takeaway for you listening is that this isn't just about your beliefs about yourself. The beliefs and expectations others hold about you, your boss, your partner, your family, society can profoundly shape your potential through these subtle, often unconscious behavioral signals.
So if you're lucky enough to have someone who genuinely believes in you, they can act like your personal Pygmalion, creating an environment where you thrive.
Exactly. But, and this is the crucial flip side, this powerful mechanism works just as effectively, maybe even more brutally, in reverse.
So high expectations can lift people up, but low expectations can pull them down.
Precisely. And that leads us into the darker side of this SFP cycle, which is often talked about using the term the Matthew Effect.
The Matthew Effect, right? That comes from the Bible verse, doesn't it? Something about, to those who have, more will be given, and from those who have not, even what they have will be taken away. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer principle.
That's the origin, yes. In sociology and psychology, the Matthew Effect describes how small initial advantages or disadvantages tend to snowball over time, thanks to these self-reinforcing cycles.
Okay, how does that connect directly to the SFP?
Think about it in that same school context. A child enters first grade slightly ahead in reading skills, maybe just by a little bit.
Okay.
Because they're doing well, they get praised more. Climate, maybe put in the advanced reading group, input, get more positive reinforcement, feedback. This makes them feel good about reading, practice more, and get even better.
Right, the Pygmalion Effect kicks in for them.
Meanwhile, the child who starts slightly behind might struggle, get less positive feedback, maybe feel anxious about reading, avoid it, and fall further behind. The initial small gap widens dramatically over time. The initial advantage compounds for one, while the initial disadvantage compounds for the other.
So a tiny difference at the start creates a positive SFP loop for the haves and a negative SFP loop for the have-nots. And that initial perception, this kid's bright, this kid's struggling, becomes a kind of blueprint that shapes their whole trajectory.
It can become a structural force creating inequality.
Mm-hmm.
But let's bring it down to a more personal level, like relationships, using an example from the sources. This shows the Matthew effect working destructively on an individual scale.
Okay, good idea. Let's make it relatable.
Imagine someone starts a new relationship, but they carry this deep, nagging core belief. Ultimately, I'm not worthy of being loved for who I am. People always leave.
Oof. Yeah, that's a heavy internal prophecy to carry into something new. And it's not just going to sit quietly in the corner, is it?
Absolutely not. That belief, that prophecy of eventual abandonment, it triggers a whole cascade of behaviors. It doesn't magically make the partner leave, but it sets the stage for it.
How? What kind of behaviors?
Well, because they believe they're unworthy, they might constantly seek reassurance, needing endless validation, which can be exhausting for the partner.
Okay. Neediness.
Or they might become hypersensitive to any perceived slight, always looking for signs of rejection, leading to jealousy or accusation.
Suspicion, distrust.
Or maybe they do the opposite. They preemptively withdraw. At the first hint of conflict, they pull back emotionally, thinking, here it comes, might as well protect myself. They sabotage intimacy because they expect it to fail anyway.
So in all these cases, the subconscious isn't aiming for a healthy relationship. It's focused on finding evidence to prove that original, painful belief correct. It's like a twisted kind of self-consistency.
That's exactly what psychologists call the confirmation trap, or confirmation bias in action. The person is filtering reality, focusing only on things that confirm their existing belief.
And when the relationship inevitably hits bumps, or maybe even ends partly because their own behavior created friction, distrust, or distance,
They point to the outcome and say, see? I knew it. I told you I wasn't lovable. Nobody stays. They see it as external validation of their unworthiness.
but the real cause wasn't the partner or fate. It was the destructive power of that initial self-fulfilling belief driving their actions.
Exactly. The initial belief was the seed, the behavior was the water and sunlight, and the failed relationship was the predictable harvest.
Okay, so this really hammers home that distinction again. The prophecy itself isn't psychic. It doesn't just make things happen. It worked by influencing the chain of behavior that leads to the outcome.
This is probably the single most critical piece to understand if you want to change things. If you take away one formula from this, let it be this. Belief leads to right arrow behavior, which leads to right arrow result.
Belief, right arrow behavior by a right arrow result.
That prophecy, that core belief, it acts like the director telling you which actions, behaviors to perform on the stage of your life, or, just as importantly, which actions to avoid.
Can you give an example of avoidance?
Sure, if you believe deep down, I'm too awkward to network effectively, what behavior follows? You avoid networking events. You don't reach out to potential contacts. What's the result? You don't build professional connections. You miss opportunities, which then confirms your initial belief. See? I told you I was bad at networking. The avoidance behavior sealed the deal.
The behavior is the linchpin. It's the action or lack of action that connects the belief to the outcome.
It's the bridge. And the good news is that bridge is where you have leverage. That's the point where you can intervene.
Which brings us perfectly to the solutions part. If behavior is the key link, then we need to figure out how to consciously choose different behaviors, even if the old belief is still whispering in our ear. How do we move from being sort of victims of these old prophecies to being the active writers of new ones?
Right. We need to shift gears from just passively hoping things will be different
Which clearly doesn't work.
to embracing what we could call the art of active belief.
Active belief. Okay. What does that look like in practice?
Well, it requires more than just positive thinking or affirmations, though those can play a role.
Mm-hmm.
It really demands consistent action. This idea connects strongly with the work of Erich Fromm, the psychologist we've talked about before.
Right. We discussed him in the context of love, how he argued love isn't just a feeling you fall into, it's an active practice, something you do.
Exactly. Love is a verb, a choice, an action. Yeah. And Fromm's perspective suggests we need to view success or achieving any meaningful goal in the same way. It's not something you passively wait for or hope to receive.
It's something you actively pursue through deliberate action.
Precisely. So let's really draw a line between these two mindsets. Passive belief sounds like, I really hope I get that job, or I wish I could lose weight, or maybe things will get better.
It sounds like you're waiting for something outside yourself to make it happen. Luck, someone else's decision, fate.
You've outsourced the control. You're a spectator in your own life, hoping for a good outcome. And the big problem with passive belief is what happens when you hit an obstacle.
You probably give up pretty easily, right? Because you think, oh, well, guess the luck wasn't on my side, or it wasn't meant to be.
Exactly. It reinforces helplessness. But active belief, that's different. It grabs the steering wheel. It makes a declaration. I will succeed because I am going to take the specific necessary actions required.
So it connects the desired outcome directly to your own behavior. I will get fit because I will follow my workout plan. I will build my business because I will make those sales calls.
Yes, it transforms hope into an operational plan. It's belief as a commitment to act.
That shift from spectator to actor, from hoping to committing, that feels like where the power lies. And you mentioned this connects to more modern ideas about habits, too.
It really does. It aligns beautifully with James Clear's work on habit formation, particularly his emphasis on identity-based habits.
Identity-based. What does that mean?
Clear argues, very persuasively, that the most effective way to change your behavior long-term isn't to focus just on the outcome you want, like losing weight or writing a book. It's to change your identity, to change who you believe you are.
Okay, how does that work? Give me an example.
Let's use the reading example from the sources. The common, often ineffective approach is outcome-focused. My goal is to read 20 books this year. That feels like a chore, something you have to force yourself to do against your current nature.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming.
The identity-based approach shifts the question. Instead of how can I make myself read more, the focus becomes building the identity. I am a person who reads.
I am a reader. Okay.
Once you adopt that identity, even just tentatively at first, the question changes to, what would a reader do today?
And the answer might be simple. A reader would read a page or read for 10 minutes.
Exactly. It's a small, manageable action that aligns with the identity. And this is where it gets really powerful psychologically. When the action, reading a page, becomes just a natural expression of your identity, I'm a reader, it stops feeling like a struggle.
It's just what you do, like brushing your teeth if you identify someone with good hygiene.
Precisely. It becomes less about willpower and more about just being who you are. This shift fundamentally rewires the underlying self-fulfilling prophecy about your capabilities or consistency.
So you're creating a positive feedback loop now. The small action, I read a page, proves the identity, I am a reader, which strengthens the belief in that identity, which makes the next small action easier.
Yes. It's the SFP working for you instead of against you. It's like the Matthew effect, but for positive growth. Each small success builds momentum and makes the next one more likely.
Okay, I love the concept, but let's be real. Many of us have spent years, maybe decades, collecting evidence for the opposite identity. Our mental filing cabinet is stuffed with proof that says, I'm lazy, I'm inconsistent, I never finish things. How do we overcome that huge pile of negative evidence?
That is the crux of the challenge, isn't it? You're essentially trying to convince your brain, which has years of data supporting the old belief, to accept a new hypothesis. And your brain, especially the subconscious, is like a skeptical scientist. It needs proof.
It won't just take your word for it if you say, okay, I'm a consistent person now.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
It needs concrete, undeniable evidence to start overriding that old programming. Wishing isn't enough. Affirmations alone might not be enough if they aren't backed by action. You need data points.
So what's the practical strategy for someone listening right now who recognizes they're stuck in a negative SFP? How do they start gathering this new evidence?
The absolute key is to start small. Ridiculously small, even. And then you have to be incredibly diligent about acknowledging and tracking those tiny successes.
Tracking them, like writing them down.
Yes, or just consciously registering them. The sources emphasize celebrating even minimal wins. Did you choose water instead of soda? Log it as evidence. I am someone who makes healthy choices. Did you resist checking your phone for 5 minutes while working? Evidence. I am someone who can focus. Did you write just one sentence for your project? Evidence. I am a writer.
So we need to stop dismissing small wins as insignificant. That single page read is 100% success if the goal for the day was just read something.
Exactly. 1 rep at the gym is infinitely more than 0 reps. That small action is a crucial data point that proves the new identity is real and achievable today. It builds believability.
And this links to another important idea. You mentioned the principle of slow start or consistent steps. Why is starting small so vital?
Because the biggest trap people fall into when trying to change is setting massive, unrealistic goals right out of the gate.
Mm.
They confuse intensity with consistency. They get inspired, maybe after listening to something like this,
Oh.
and they declare, right, starting tomorrow, I'm running 10 miles every day, or I'm going to write 5,000 words every single morning. They think active belief means this huge, dramatic leap.
And what inevitably happens?
They burn out. They fail almost immediately because it's unsustainable. Maybe they manage it for a day or two, then they crash.
And the failure then becomes proof.
Proof for the old prophecy. See,
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't stick with it. I'm just not disciplined. It reinforces the negative identity, kills motivation, and the whole attempt collapses.
Whereas starting small, like run for 5 minutes or write for 15 minutes, is achievable.
It's achievable, repeatable, and sustainable. And every time you do it, you collect another piece of evidence for the new prophecy. I am someone who shows up. I am consistent. True active belief isn't built on one giant heroic effort. It's built on small, reliable, daily acts of integrity with yourself.
Consistency over intensity. Build the evidence brick by reliable brick.
That's how you genuinely rewire the brain. Each small, consistent action strengthens the neural pathways linked to that new identity. You're literally training your brain to expect success in that small domain, making the belief more automatic over time.
Okay, this feels really practical, but there's one more huge obstacle we need to tackle, something that keeps so many people trapped regardless of their intentions. That's the need for external validation.
Ah, yes. The trap of needing other people's approval. The sources link this directly to a lack of core self-confidence, and it fuels some of the most toxic SFPs. Well, if your fundamental operating belief is something like, my worth depends on what other people think of me,
Hmm.
or I'm only valuable if I impress others,
Yeah.
then your entire life becomes a performance. You're constantly trying to manage perceptions, seeking applause, fearing criticism. You've essentially handed over the pen that writes your self-fulfilling prophecy to the audience.
We talked about this as showmanship before, that constant need to display status or success. It's exhausting, and it means your behavior isn't driven by your own values, but by guessing what others want.
Exactly. And it makes you incredibly fragile. One negative comment, one perceived rejection, and your whole sense of self can just crumble because its foundation is outside of you. It rests on shaky ground.
So the real breakthrough, the real freedom, comes from taking that power back.
Yes. Achieving what you might call psychological independence. It's the point where your sense of worth becomes internal, not external.
What's the internal statement that signals that shift? How do you declare that independence?
It's the moment you can genuinely affirm and start acting from the belief. My value is inherent. It doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or opinion. My own belief about myself determines my actions.
That's powerful. My belief determines my behavior, not someone else's gaze.
When you truly internalize that, it breaks the chain of seeking external validation. It anchors your SFP internally. Your locus of control shifts back inside you.
So even if someone else doubts you or criticizes you or doesn't offer praise, your internal engine, your belief behavior chain, keeps running based on your script.
Exactly. Your resilience skyrockets because your self-worth isn't fluctuating based on external feedback loops anymore. Your confidence becomes a function of your own consistent actions, not other people's opinions. And your actions are something you can control.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these threads together. We've seen the science, the Pygmalion Effect showing external expectations matter, the Matthew Effect showing how these things compound positively or negatively.
Right. And then the solution path, shifting from passive hope to active identity-based belief.
Which requires changing who you believe you are and then proving that new identity to yourself through small, consistent, tracked actions.
And finally, achieving psychological independence by grounding your worth internally, not in external approval.
So the big picture here is that this self-fulfilling prophecy isn't just an interesting psychological quirk. It's literally the narrative framework of your life. And the empowering part is realizing you are the scriptwriter.
Whether you've been aware of it or not, you've been writing it all along. The question now is, do you like the story you've been writing, and are you ready to edit it?
Which means finding the courage to revise that core belief, that opening sentence of your current chapter, identifying the old, limiting prophecy.
Things like, I'm just unlucky, or good things don't last for me, or I'm not smart enough. Those passive, fate-driven statements.
And replacing it with something active, identity-focused, and empowering.
Like, I am someone who learns from setbacks, or I am capable of building consistency, or I approach challenges with resourcefulness.
Notice the difference. The new prophecies aren't denying that challenges exist. They're defining who you are in the face of those challenges.
Exactly. It's not about pretending life will be easy. It's about defining your capability and your response. That definition dictates your behavior.
And this brings us back to that core lesson, maybe from about belief itself. Real belief isn't just thinking something, it's doing something.
Yes, true belief, the kind that changes reality, doesn't wait around for 100% certainty or perfect conditions. It doesn't wait for proof. It starts with a behavior. You act first.
That feels so counterintuitive. We think we need to feel confident before we act confidently.
But often the psychological reality is the reverse. Action breeds confidence. Taking the step, however small, generates the feeling. You don't wait until you feel like a runner to run. You run, even just a little, and that starts to make you feel like a runner.
So for anyone listening who feels stuck in that self-doubt cycle, the advice isn't wait until you believe it more, it's take the first tiny action now.
Yes. Act as if you already are the person you want to be. Act as if you have the potential. Make the call, write the sentence, do the push-up.
Because that very first action, however small, is the first piece of concrete evidence you feed back to your brain.
Exactly. It tells your brain, hey, maybe this new identity is possible. Belief follows action. Action generates proof. Proof solidifies belief. That's the upward spiral. That's how you build unstoppable momentum.
So wrapping this all up, maybe that old saying is true after all. Belief is half the battle.
Because it gives you the courage, the internal permission, the direction to take that first crucial action.
And it's that action, small, consistent, repeated, that provides the other half. That's what actually builds the success. You become your own Pygmalion.
You stop feeding the negative Matthew effect loop in your own life. You stop manufacturing evidence for your own limitations. You take back the script.
So let's leave everyone with a final thought, a challenge for this week. Take a quiet moment, maybe right after this, and honestly identify the single most limiting label or belief you consistently apply to yourself.
Is it, I'm too disorganized, I'm not creative, I'm bad with people, I'm destined to struggle? Whatever it is, name it.
Acknowledge the fear that might come up when you think about changing it. That's natural. But then consciously, firmly replace it. Replace it with an active statement of possibility, an identity you choose.
Maybe it's, I am becoming more organized every day. I am exploring my creativity. I am learning to connect better. I am capable of overcoming challenges. Frame it as who you are or who you are becoming.
Because the most compelling stories, the ones that truly change lives, aren't written by passively waiting. They're written by people who dared to believe in a different ending and then took the actions step by step to make it real.
They lived out their chosen prophecy.
So continue that journey. Keep refining your belief. Keep taking those small, consistent actions. Keep writing your best chapter. Until next time.